Welcome to the IoT podcast, Cybersecurity mini-series special. I'm your host, Isaac Knight, Cloud Talent Specialist at 5V Tech. In this episode, we're joined by Scott Register, Vice President, Security Solutions at Keysight. Scott has more than 15 years of experience leading product management and go-to market activities for global technology companies. In this episode, we get into the changing outlook of manufacturing on security and the potential manifestations of Gen AI in new IoT devices. Hi Scott, thank you for joining us today on the IoT podcast, a special episode here at the IoT Security Foundation. We have Scott Register, VP of Security Solutions at Keysight. Again, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
You've had a busy day here
Thank you for having me.
Exhibition. I guess just if we could just kick things off, a bit of an introduction to you and yourself. So if you could tell me about your background and what kind of things you're currently up to in your current position at Keysight.
Sure. So I've been in the computer security game for a long time, since maybe before you were born, since the early 90s. And started off working on a university network and then moved to, I've done a bunch of network security startups, that some of which, became really big security companies. Currently at a company called Keysight, which basically traces its roots back to the original Hewlett-Packard. So we're the largest manufacturer of test and measurement gear in the world. And I'm focused on security testing. So I came in through an acquisition where I focused mainly on sort of network testing, like testing of network devices, routers and switches and firewalls, and things like that. One of the really exciting things about being at Keysight is we're a big global company, roughly 16,000 employees, something like that. And we're in lots of different interesting markets, everything from healthcare to automotive to aerospace and defense to electronics. And so being able to bring security to those different sort of areas, it has been really exciting. The IoT market is an example. We've done, like Keysight already did things like battery drain analysis and RF testing, all this other stuff for IoT. And now we've added security testing to that sort of stable of things that we can offer manufacturers, and that's fun. That's been a very interesting, kind of rewarding project so far. Anyway, so I focus on new security solutions, and IoT is a big piece of that.
Fantastic, good stuff. Now, when it comes to what you've witnessed this year in terms of IoT, what are the biggest innovations or maybe the lessons that you've seen for IoT throughout this year?
Wow. So I find it very encouraging that there are new standards and regulations coming on, which will help to sort of adjust market forces and make security something that's worth investing in for manufacturers, right? I think in many cases in IoT development, along with like sort of every other space, security is often seen as a necessary evil, something to minimize. It's just a drain on costs, and you want to do just enough to get by, right? And in the absence of any real regulation or market pressure, that often amounts to very, very little on the security side. And especially in things like consumer IoT, where margins are very thin. And so there's an emphasis on getting new features in, time to market, keeping costs down so you can sell, these little lights for $5 a piece or whatever it is, or less. And there really has been no motivation to convince manufacturers to sort of spend time and effort and money on security. Now that there are new regulations, PSTI in the UK, there's a new one in the States, the Cyber Trust Mark coming out. Some of those may be voluntary, some are mandatory, but in any case, it's in the manufacturer's best sort of material interest to now focus on security. And so whatever sort of drives it, the fact that people are taking it more seriously, I think, is a very good thing. It's good for consumers. It's good for national security. It's a win-win across the board.
So from your perspective at Keysight, would that be one of the kind of biggest challenges you faced, or is there any other sort of standouts?
Well, so frankly, for us, that's an opportunity. So like I said, we don't build we don't build IoT devices, like period, right? But we build testing systems, and we're very good at building automated testing systems. So one of the actually very first things we did in the sort of IoT space was we developed an automated testing system for auto manufacturers who needed to comply with the UN ECE WP29 R154 155 requirements. So we combine like security testing software and basically an entire mobile network in a box with some test automation front end. So if you needed to meet those requirements, we could attack your car over CAN bus, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or even a mobile network, all from one little thing, right? And it was automated, and it did all the things you needed to do to demonstrate compliance, right? That was very well received. And so now we're sort of expanding our footprint to things like ETSI EN 303645 testing and Cyber Trustmark in the US. We're looking at other standards, UL 2941, things like that. In part, we want to put security validation into, like, make it accessible to more people, right? Because we all know, I mean, you would certainly know this, recruiting good security people is difficult. There aren't that many out there, and you know, they're expensive, and we tend to be very flighty, you know. So keeping people around is difficult, right? So what we want to do is build automated tools that anyone, even small manufacturers, can use and do a really good job of kind of testing, improving the security in their products, validating it against different standards, right? And so I think that's a very sort of a noble goal, but it's one that's very rewarding because that enables, you know, kind of more competition, more players in the market, more people to build secure devices, and that's good. That's a good thing. But that's what we do is we help all those manufacturers validate against the standards and build more secure things. So for us, it's an opportunity. Yeah,
no, I get that. Excellent. So from your perspective, what can we expect coming up in 2024 for IoT?
So I think you'll see some mad scrambles for compliance. There will be a lot of sort of hand-wringing about products that are already in the market that simply will never pass. One of the challenges, you know, I talked about this earlier, is cost and time to market and keeping costs down. And we've seen lots of IoT devices out there which simply can't be upgraded, like the firmware and the Bluetooth chipset, let's say, just can't be upgraded because if it were upgradable, it would cost another like 5 cents a device, right? And so how to deal with, now that there's sort of stricter testing, how to deal with devices that can't be upgraded while you sort of bring new ones to market. I think there's going to be a lot of questions about that. How to, you know, I think that the industry will very quickly look at things like best practices for building secure devices in ways that they have not before, and with an eye specifically toward the different compliance regimes that they have to deal with. I think that those will definitely change, along with just that's just the security side, along with sort of the massive uptick in functionality. And I don't know if it will hit in 24, but within the next 3 years, the impact of generative AI on IoT functionality. I mean, in ways that anyone who says they know, oh yeah, this is going to be the impact, I think is just lying, right, or wrong. I mean, that, you know, if you think about, I don't know, what was the impact of the internet, right? The way that most people experience sort of the internet most of the time is through their smartphone, right? 20 years ago, those really didn't exist, right? And so, you know, thinking about, okay, what's the long-term impact of the internet is first coming out. Unless you were the one who guessed, oh yeah, there's going to be a phone in your pocket. It's only going to have one button and it's going to do everything in the world. You would have missed, like, what's the big impact? And so I think in the sort of generative AI space, I mean, I see this question a lot. I just don't think we know, because I don't think we know what the ultimate delivery vehicle will be. But with the, you know, what's the stat I heard today? 22 billion deployed IoT devices now. There's sort of an obvious space. I don't know exactly how, but for generative AI to be manifest in kind of new classes of IoT devices. And I think that is going to change the world in ways that we just can't yet imagine.
Okay. I think you've answered two in one in that response. But so the next question we had for you was, what are your thoughts on securing the Internet of Things in the era of artificial intelligence? Do you have anything to add?
So I think we can expect, it's not good or bad. It's just the way it is. I think we can expect, motivated, well-funded threat actors to employ adversarial AI to figure out good ways in, even to do things like, and this is something we've seen, generate ever more realistic phishing emails, right? I mean, it's one thing, when you read a sentence in sort of broken English from the Nigerian prince trying to get his money out, right? But when you read something that really looks like it came from your friend, your buddy, and here's a picture of him, or here's a picture of him and you. I don't remember that party, but there's us. Things like that can make that phishing email or whatever even more realistic. And with voice generation, a phone call that goes along with it. So those attacks will still be expensive. So I don't expect them, and just because the learning and the compute horsepower behind it. So don't expect that to be used just for like nuisance attacks, but for things that have a real economic payoff, attacks against fintech and things like that, or against things like critical infrastructure. I mean, that's where I would sort of expect to see it first. But the good news is, we can all, defense systems always trail a little bit, but that also means that good people can use adversarial AI to help train defensive systems, right? And so, does your firewall, your IDS, your whatever, is it able to recognize this very, very broad range of novel attacks that are just generated by your AI, right? And so, like I said, it's neither good nor bad. It's a new tool, sort of like a transistor that you can use for lots of different reasons. But, I guess the short answer is the bad guys will get smarter. And it's incumbent upon us to leverage, similar technologies to make defensive tools and security better at the same time, or as close as we can get.
I think that's my biggest take from today, learning the more AI advances and the more helpful it can be, is the more opportunity for it to be exploited as well. That's for sure. Okay. And what's next for Keysight?
Well, so we are, so on the just on the IoT security side, I'll say we started with a very specific focus on this sort of attacking different network interfaces, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and IP interfaces and applications that sit on top of that. We are certainly interested in, as we hear from manufacturers about the kinds of testing that they need to do, both for security in and of itself and for compliance, expanding the footprint of the kinds of assessments and things that we can do, I think is going to be very, very interesting. Watch this space for us to really expand the footprint of ways that we can help manufacturers, expand from sort of this range of testing to something much, much broader, right?
Okay, fantastic. No, thanks for going into such detail. That's really helpful. Now, for our listeners and our audience, where can they find about what you guys are doing at Keysight and what?
The easy way is I'd love to show you a QR code. We've got one in the booth. Just go to keysight.com and search for IoT Security, and that's probably the easiest way to find us.
Fantastic. All right. Well, okay. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully we'll speak again soon.
We count on it.